Dave.
It's like,
We had to.
it's like a call to order. Good evening, everyone. It's 7:16 PM on November 9th, 2022, and this is Katie Ketchman, and I call the Committee of the Whole to order, and we'll begin with a roll call.
Ellis. Here. Francie.
Here.
Gakin.
Here.
Catchman.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
Morrison. Here. Martini.
Here.
Ross. Shaw. Here. Sedor.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Shave.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And tonight for guest speakers, we have Lynette Buffington joining us from Greater Grays Harbor. Welcome, Lynette. Go ahead and come on up.
All right.
Kind of do it out of order during the regular council meeting. Yeah.
Got it. Is this okay for audio for folks online, and can you guys hear me?
It sounds like it's working.
Great. So Becca will be getting my PowerPoint up, but while she's doing that, I just want to, first of all, say it's great to see you in person. I've been doing this since July of 2020, and this is the first time I've met the Aberdeen City Council in person. So you look great. You all have shoulders and everything below that box I've seen you on the screen for so long. So thank you for having me. There are also quite a few new members to the council, so I want to give you some background on who Greater Grays Harbor is in this community. Greater Grays Harbor is the incorporation of the Regional Economic Development Council and Chamber of Commerce. There are local chambers of commerce. We have Montesano has a chamber, Westport Grayland does, but they're not in any type of relationship with us except stakeholder partners. But we are the regional chamber looking at regional advocacy and policy efforts, as well as just trying to create a strong, vibrant local economy. We're also the Economic Development Council, that's the EDC part of it, and we're also the designation ADO, and that's what the State Department of Commerce calls us, the Associate Development Organization. We are an extension of the Department of Commerce at the local level, and that is a designation that our county commissioners approve every 3 years. We are a public-private partnership. A little over 50% of our funding comes from public sources, so just about every city in the county, county government, the PUD, and the port also invest in us, and that other investment is with private companies. So just wanted to give everybody a background of who we are. Next slide, please. These are the 6 areas in which we focus, and again, one of the things, if you could go back a slide, please. One of the things to consider is this is a municipal services contract, so you do have a contract with your engagement with us, but these are the 6 areas in which we focus for economic development in the region, in the Greater Grays Harbor region. Next slide. When looking at the city of Aberdeen, there are 136 businesses on our rolls that exist in the city of Aberdeen. A total of 172, though, have listings on our website. And the reason why that number is higher, and I'll probably hit on it a couple more times in my presentation, is that when the pandemic hit, we knew many of our businesses in the hospitality sector did not have an online presence, and everybody was going online. That's where the customers were. So we added for free directory listings to the hospitality sector to our website, creating an online presence for those businesses that may have not had that. Of the online business listings, the listings have shown up in searches 22,000 times, viewed about 5,000 times, referrals, meaning that the consumer, the hunter, the person looking for the businesses clicked out and went to either the individual listing site or that company's page close to 300 times. And if a company builds their listing on our directory enough, they can have a map link, and they clicked out close to 30 times to go and find that business. Next slide, please. We also work with business recruitment projects, and I'll talk about the county as a whole in a bit. But overall, in business recruitment, we are involved in 6 projects. When I talk about that, that means the project came inbound and we looked at it, or it cold called, or it comes in through commerce, and I'll revisit that in a little bit. We evaluate it to see if it's a good fit. We talk to property owners to see if they can meet the demands of the project. And then I equate it to blind dating. Maybe you're a match, maybe you're not. Maybe you get to date 0 or you go on a first date, but may not go farther than that. So we were involved in 6 of those that represented 208 jobs and 100 million in capital expenditures. Next slide, please. Overall, these are the 4 big areas we've been involved in. It's still business assistance, but not as much COVID, developing the economy, promoting local business, and workforce development. Next slide. We were able to work one-on-one with 129 businesses in about the last 12 months. We're still talking about COVID relief options, not as frequently, but the most common inbound calls we get are access to capital. Businesses are still looking for relief. They aren't expecting grant relief. They are looking for loans and other things. Of the 129 businesses we worked with, about 30 of those were in Aberdeen alone. And then general business consultation, asking general questions. And then this year, I put this number on here because it's notable. This is the most startups that have called us in this past 11 months. And startups range from ideation, I'm thinking about starting a business, what's good, to, hey, I have my license to be a counselor or a social worker or something like that. I want to figure out how to start that. So this is the most we've had in the last 11 months, I'd say, of startup interest. Next slide. This is a very tiny print slide to show you where the highest interest is in business assistance. There's a lot of nonprofit interest. There is a desire to start nonprofits to serve some of the populations in the community. There is real estate interest to find the right place to locate their business, and then professional services, really broad category of different folks calling in, asking for assistance and guidance and general coaching resources. Next slide. Small business grants, as I mentioned, many of those have ceased, but we did do one late spring, early summer of last year, a CDBG grant. I'm sure city staff hear the initial CDBG and get a little nervous with record keeping, and CDBG's very stressful grants, but we had one of those and we were able to give out some business relief grants. There's still money in that pot, and we hope that the county will approve an extension of that so we can continue to give those out. It is burdensome to qualify. Both business and household income have to qualify. Other funding that came out that we may have not been directly involved in, but landed in our community. There was festival and events grants, Working Washington 4 and 4.5, Working Washington 5, which people should be getting awards here very soon, NOAA Fisheries grants, and the Small Business Flex Fund, which is an outstanding loan fund that is grossly underutilized, and we're trying to get folks to get engaged with that. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, did it skip right over that? Sorry.
Did it go back?
Small business grants, and then, I'm sorry, the one right after number 2, developing our economy. Sorry, you switched it so fast.
How is it going?
You got this, your quick draw. There you go, okay. Yep, so those are the 4 areas in business, economic development. Big thing I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurial development and working with people that are considering starting a business or locating a business here. Next slide, thank you, Becca. These were the amount of business visits we got on site to speak with those businesses. Probably a little bit more than that, but these were the more documented clinical visits, asking folks about their needs or expansion, retention, and things like that. This is really important if you know a business, regardless of size, that is going through a struggle or profound success, and there's a secret to that success, or you want them to be able to talk to someone. That is our job, to go out there and visit with them. We can start pinpointing what the challenges might be. So please don't hesitate to have them call us, and we'll come out and visit with them and see if there's any resources for them. Please don't hesitate to do that. Next slide. And then overall BRE and recruitment. BRE, again, is business retention and expansion, and general recruitment. A couple things, GGHI is now the front porch of the .09 fund, which is a special fund for rural communities to invest in public infrastructure projects. If you haven't heard, there is also a broadband action team being convened by the county, and Greater Grace Harbor is also part of that. That is about strategically expanding broadband access throughout the county and pursuing funding for those projects. Some of you participated in a community-informed economic development survey, and that went out for quite some time in the spring, and we're still looking at the data for that. We are still looking for participants to respond to the next phase of community feedback. So if you in particular want to give feedback about complementary industries and how to strategically recruit them, please let me know and I'll let you participate in the next round of community feedback. And then a couple other places that I'm involved that you should be aware of at the national level, at the international level, I guess, but really the national level. We're involved in the Economic Development Council Policy Action Committee, the WEDA, which is Washington Economic Development Association. Everybody's talking about workforce housing, accessible housing, middle housing, any description of housing possible, everybody's talking about it. And I'm on a state committee for that as well as a rural economies committee. Next slide, please. Moving faster than me. Okay, so we worked with 63 businesses here, training them. This is the first time we noticed that the community wasn't aware that we could do these type of trainings. So March of 2020, we did a workshop. COVID happened, everything else got shut down. We started to bring back virtual workshops through the pandemic. Now we got into in-person workshops. We did a 3-part series with Timberland Library about the free resources for business startups, marketing plans, employee development, and nonprofit resources. We prepared folks for Working Washington 5. Really important because there's a new federal number that anybody has to get called a UEI. Folks don't know how to get it, and we've been working with them to help them get the number so they can qualify for the grant. And then we, thanks to the Grace Harbor Community Foundation, we were able to do a 6-part Ask the Expert series where we did one on our small group peer-to-peer business training. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we work to recruit businesses. The PUD, the port, some of the cities, and of course the Department of Commerce are a big part of that partnership. These packages come in usually from Department of Commerce, giving us those specs I talked to you about, and then we look to see if we have an appropriate site. In the past 12 months, I've had more cold calls in than I did in the prior 12 months, meaning that I've gotten my typical ones from Commerce, but now I'm just getting brokers straight out calling, wanting to know about properties, business owners, and things like that. So they're maybe bypassing other traditional channels and calling us directly. We also, I want to make sure people know this because we don't probably brag about it enough, is we commission economic research on our county, and then we send it out to site selectors, at the global level, letting them know the demographics of our community. That report lives on our website, as does a real-time demographic widget. Next slide, please. Overall, across the county, we've worked on 12 recruitment projects, close to $300 million in capital expenditures, and representing a little over 1,400 jobs. And again, that's like what I talked about before. You're having conversations, seeing if you're a good fit, if you have the property, the utilities, the rail, all the things that go into that profile. Next slide. 2 that I'm at liberty to talk about. There's also a lot of confidentiality, as you can imagine. I have a large barge builder and seafood reprocessor, very committed to the Aberdeen area, looking for a long-term site. And they're often, these projects are code named as well when they come out of Commerce. I also have a light manufacturing company looking at siting in the Aberdeen, Hoquiam area. And these are long conversations. I'm still dealing with inbound projects that I inherited before I even got here that are still active and looking to site. And then, of course, tourism economic development. We are not the visitor information center for the county. People still show up and we still give them materials, but we're not it. We are, the county tourism has its own office. It does not fund a VIC anymore, but we know the community sends folks to our front door and the flyers still keep showing up. So we still gladly hand them out when people show up. A lot of our international visitors still find us. But we also know that most people are online. And so we want to make sure that the strong amount of businesses we have in the tourism sector are connected to visitors. So we produce original content. Anything that says Discover Grace Harbor is us. And so, we have blogs. Next slide, please. I'll move this faster for you guys. We have blogs, we have Visit, we have relocation guides, we have Instagram, we have all sorts of things. Under that Visit tab is where you can find all that. Next slide. And then we worked, like I told you earlier, to expand that directory for the hospitality sector, anybody that lives in that tourism industry. We have added them complimentary to our website. We have sourced those on our own, so we may have missed some folks, but we worked really hard to expand those listings, make them robust, and then we've written original blog content. We've done 25 blogs in the past 12 months, featured 171 businesses in those blogs, and then bought ad space and publications outside the area to promote the region. Next slide. Overall, that online directory has about 65,000 views. Categories are searched close to 60,000 times. Member pages, 77,000 times, and close to 6,000 times the searcher has gone out and tried to find that business directly through their website or their individual listing on our site. Next slide, please. And then promoting local business, these are the 3 key areas. Next slide. One thing when you join this organization as the member side of it, the private funding side of it, we write original content blog for you. What's really valuable about that is that the member now has evergreen content they can share whenever they want on their website. It's their content, and we do a Facebook ad as well. Next slide. And many of you were at this event. We finally got to bring back Leaders Banquet after many years of being in hibernation. And we had some really great business winners. Mount Olympus Brewing Mob won Business of the Year, which is outstanding. And the really great story is in 2019, Mob was New Business of the Year winner. To come through a pandemic and all of it and be Business of the Year a couple of years later is really outstanding. Honda of Grays Harbor won Best Dressed Table again, a very, very coveted award. Paws of Grays Harbor won Nonprofit of the Year. Too Cool Out Ocean Shores won Small Business of the Year. First Citizens Bank, Large Business, and Harborina New Business. So it was a great night, really great night, and we love celebrating our businesses. Next slide. And then events. We finally got to kick that off, and I've engaged with many of you on these events. Ranging from lunch with the mayors and our legislative send-off, Friday, January 6th, legislative send-off coming up. Lunch with the mayors, we do a State of Grays Harbor where we talk about that research. We've worked with fire and police for get to know the new folks in charge and leaders. So it's been a good 12 months of events. We're really proud of that. Next slide. And then, of course, we do ribbon cuttings, have resumed at a pretty heavy pace, and we're really happy with that. 26 since February, 74% of those ribbon cuttings convert to membership. Next slide. And we have Leadership Grays Harbor and the Greater Grays Harbor Foundation, 2 workforce investment initiatives. Next slide. Leadership Grays Harbor, some of you may have been through that 6-month leadership principles program in partnership with the college. We had 16 folks go through it this last year, and we did both remote and then we did a civic tour as well. It was really important to me that the participants in Leadership Grays Harbor this year heard about the levee project. That's such a long-term goal that we want to make sure that multiple generations are aware of this effort and the goal. Next slide. Next slide, please. And then we have the Greater Grays Harbor Foundation. It's a C3 part of our organization where we can take donations and raise funds and give out grants to workforce development programs, specifically with career-connected learning and youth programs. Next slide. And then again, we're membership. We have a private investment. With COVID, they expected 50% of chambers in the country to fold, so it was really important that we stayed on top of those metrics and made sure we knew where we were tracking. When I did this slide deck, we were 10% below where we were this same time in 2019. As of yesterday, we're 8% down, so we're just chipping away and recovering quite well. We also have REG down at the port donated money to us to create a member dues relief fund. If any member wants to remain a member but can't afford it, we can cover their dues. So why have we had this success this past year? We've gotten great people on board. We've hired some really great talent. We've really been able to increase our visibility, and we've been able to elevate our training opportunities, which was severely missing before. Next slide. 2023, a lot of small print. Highlights are still focusing on our legislative policy and advocacy. As a member of the City Council, you are welcome to our weekly legislative affairs briefings. They're on Zoom. You can be driving, you can be having breakfast, drinking coffee, you can listen in. We try to bring all our legislators in, and then we bring in government affairs from key industries to give us briefings about what's happening in Olympia. I usually send out your invite in December and early January, again, just to make sure you put it on your calendar. We'll also be making sure that the Economic Development District gets revitalized. It died a few years back, and so we're forming it again and making sure it's been approved. Now we're in the governance stage of that. That's a multiple county economic development district. Is going to be key to pursuing more federal dollars. And then as well as just really leverage that community-informed economic development survey to see what the community feels we need and complements the community. Next slide. And that's it. Thanks, Becca. Any questions? Katie, Councilmember Captain, excuse me.
That's okay, no problem. First of all, thank you
Yeah.
to you. You've had some really phenomenal events this year. I've attended a few of the luncheons
Thanks.
and they've just been really quality. Lots of really good information given out in the course of about 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated those events. I was going to ask you, on a previous slide, you spoke about businesses that were interested in Grace Harbor, and I was wondering if you could just kind of highlight what are the reasons that are driving them to Grace Harbor? You know, what are the pros, and then what are some of the reasons when they look at Grace Harbor that they're going elsewhere? So what are some of the deterrents too?
Yeah, sometimes I don't get all the details, but I can give you anecdotally, land, industrial land, what I call the legacy industries in the timber and fishing industry. There's an attraction to whatever infrastructure we have there. Rail, attraction is that, water, access to water, so along the Chehalis, for example, a new waterway. Industrial space out at SATSUP, those are some of the attributes they like. So if they turn away, we'll say, it might be the workforce housing. Is the volume of workforce here? So I'm not gonna say housing, I'll say is the volume of workforce here to be able to fulfill their staffing needs. And it might be something completely out of our control, like proximity to the airport, right? So they want to be 2 hours, and maybe we can't really be 2 hours to an airport, or does our port doesn't do containers, for example, so that might eliminate it. So there's some things that just will never be that. But the most common early one might be not be able to provide the workforce, or the amount of land, while we have land, the amount of land necessary is not something we have. If we get farther down the conversation, I don't care where it is in the state, but it seems to be prevalent in the coastal counties. If we get to permitting, myself and all my colleagues will say permitting becomes the aggravator in moving projects along. The permitting may happen, but it takes too long. And it becomes uncertain, and money is wasted, and we'll go someplace else where permitting is more certain and more clear. Councilmember Ellis?
Yes, can you clarify if the city has a membership, does that apply also to council members who maybe want to sign up for one of your events?
Sure. So, first of all, our events are open to anybody, but there's a fee, and then there's a membership, non-member, and member fee. I'm trying to think about how it's worked in the past. Of course, the city would have, the city staff, if they registered, of course, they would have member pricing. I would think we would be applying the member pricing to the council members as well.
You can,
Yeah.
Councilperson Ellis, if you,
Yeah.
I've sent in the past Candy an
Yeah.
email and copied somebody at the city, and I
Yeah.
always end up on the list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a pricing, a slight pricing difference, and of course, you want to take advantage of that. Other questions? I know you guys have a heck of agenda tonight, so I appreciate you hearing me out. To you new members that I'm seeing for the first time, please don't hesitate to, give me a call. We'll go have coffee, talk to you about more things, especially if you have questions about this. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynette. All right, next on our agenda is department head updates, and there's a standing item here for Director Soul for the budget presentation. Do we want to start with that tonight? Come on up. And council should have the deck already printed for them.
Couldn't stand to look at it. No, I didn't get one.
23,
gotten some emails from me with some detail. And go ahead and get started. So we need to go to the, that one right there. So the order of presentation on the citywide section of this presentation, we'll start with the supplemental budget, then the citywide budget, general fund, capital projects, and utility funds. And supplemental budget. We have a bill here for the supplemental budget, bill number 2214, and I just wanted to give you another way to look at this. Your attachments for the supplemental budget do not include this one. This is the overview piece that I utilize when I'm doing it. Start where we're at, projecting the ending 22 cash. Then I put in the budget, proposed supplemental budget, and then what impact that has on the ending cash, which then turns into the beginning 23 budget cash. The first one, if you want to go back one, there we go. The one that's highlighted is the general fund. In there, we have 3 sections. We have the budgeted cash for general fund. We have the unbudgeted committed fire insurance. That's the money that council has committed to a couple of public works projects, one being the levee and the other being the pump station. And then we have the unbudgeted portion that has not been committed, and that's $8,570,000. In this supplemental budget, we're asking to use $2.3 million, and it is for, as you go through that supplemental budget, you'll see these changes, but on these 2 sheets, this one and the next page, it lists those so you can compare it to the overall budget summary. That one. So the largest is Gateway, which we need to get the cash up to above the negative, and the amount that we have there is to take care of that. I know there's things going on in the background, and I won't comment on that. I'm just commenting on making sure the numbers are correct. The next section is the citywide budget. I've tried to present it in a multitude of ways so it makes more sense and is more transparent. This again is the summary sheet that I like to look at, and I included it so council could have a chance to review this. This takes the columns, start with the funds in numerical order, then the description of the fund, projected beginning 2023 cash. So this is based on if the supplemental budget is approved. This is where our cash would start in 23. The revenues for 23, the expenditures, and the projected ending cash. And then the next 2 columns are what is actually being budgeted in the ordinance. That includes the cash by fund. So general funds, $25,297,535 for both revenue and expenditures, because when you add both the beginning and ending cash, it ties it out to be the same number on both sides. As a city in Washington State, that is typically how we budget the cash into the fund. Doesn't mean we're using it. It lists it as beginning and ending. The budgeted items are the ones that we budgeted to spend. So it just gives a picture of that. So this is the first and second. Next page is the continuation of this. Our overall budget, if you look at the far right 2 columns, is $104,174,927 for 2023 at this point. The next slide is a different way to look at this, because, you know, numbers are fun if you look at them multiple ways. This is the revenue and expenses by type. So I put the types in so that if you're wondering what salary and wages cost for the city, or fringe cost for the city, it gives you the 23 budget, 22 budget, and then the difference with the percent of change. These are further explained as we get deeper into this presentation. The next page is where I start to explain the changes. So for the citywide revenue changes, the estimated beginning fund balance
our estimated beginning cash, it increased $5,443,932. We moved in, if council approves the 2.3 million, $1 million is sitting in 2023, and in 2022, we're wanting to move 1.3 million in the supplemental budget. We're leaving some in general fund, the majority is being transferred out as part of the supplemental budget. We're gonna use $800,000 in 23 for the fire and police building repairs. We're also going to match that with REIT funding, 100 per building, which is in the language for REIT. So it gives 500,000 for fire and 500,000 for police to make the necessary repairs for some of the things that these buildings have been dealing with. And both police and fire will be getting the clarified answers, which are closer to accurate. We're hoping the 500 million is high, but 500,000 is high, but we also want to give enough so that some of the problems that they're facing right now can be dealt with.
Yeah.
We also have a proposed use in 2022 of $1,373,169 for the Gateway project that we need to cover the negative public buildings fund, and that's where the money for that in 2022, it's covering a small deficit in that fund. Abatement fund has a small deficit. Animal control and library both had expenditures exceeding the 2022 budget, so cash was needed to shore up those two funds. The next difference is charges for services. They increased $1,504,476, and that is 8.58% increase. Utility fees increased due to the third year of rate increases for the utilities of about $1 million. EMS availability fee, it increased $465,000 in 2023, budgeted to increase. Other funding sources increased $3,491,000. That include water loans for some of the water projects, which equated to 2.9 million, and a transfer from general fund of 800,000 and rate 200,000 for police and fire building improvements. State grants increased 4,300,000, 36.25% increase. North Shore levy increases to the CBFA North Shore levy of 3,300,000 and the DOC North Shore levy, Fry Creek of 2,533,000. Federal indirect grants, citywide decrease, and that was due to ARPA being spent out in 22. So there is no ARPA in 23. The next slide is just a visual view of the revenue sources for the 2023 budget. The largest sources are other funding sources for 14%, estimated beginning balance of 28%, taxes of 17%, charges for services 18%, and grants, state grants of 16% of the total overall budget. The next slide is the citywide expenditure changes. Payroll fringe, it increased $1,087,000, and we found that 800 of that may change as a formatting or a calculation error in one of the fringes created a problem there. That will be fixed before the second reading. It will go down, so it's a fix that will help the budget, but it was something that was caught at the last minute. Liability and property insurance increased $602,214. WCI had a statewide increase of 40% overall liability. Property increase of 13%, auto physical damage increase of 9%, boiler, machinery, and crime and fidelity, 5 to 10% increase. To us, that meant that significant increase. Capital outlay increased $9.5 million. Detailed list is included with the supplement, with the budget of the capital projects that we had budgeted for 23. Debt service, that went down, and that's due to our IT loan being paid off, the sewer plant construction loan paid off, and an interfund fire loan only has one payment left, and it will be paid off. So it's reduced the outflow for that. The next slide is just another visual graph of our outflow of expenditures. As you see, capital outlay is the largest. And then we have salaries and wages, estimated fund balance, and fringe. So that's just for those of us that like the visuals. Then we can move on to the general fund. The general fund is our most unrestricted fund, but also our hardest fund because we have to use it for so many things. This first chart is a chart of from 2018 through 2023's projected budget of revenue we received, expenditures we've spent, and at the bottom it shows the 6.9 million beginning fund balance, how much we're using of that, and our ending fund balance of 3,154,000, and then it also breaks out the Armory fire insurance and our projected use of that proposed. The next slide is a graph illustrating our revenue sources for general fund. As you can see, 88% of our revenue is from tax revenue, and then everything else is significantly lower than that. And those are, and I'll go a little further on that in just a minute. The general fund history, I did another graph so you can see all the different types of funding and where they line up on the chart by year. The blue line is, of course, taxes. The green line at the top is miscellaneous revenues, and in 2020 and 19, that was our insurance proceeds, which was a significant increase, but it was specific, and we don't have that kind of money coming in anymore.
One time.
The next slide is the general fund revenue changes. Tax revenues increased by 511,000. Grants, state share, and transfers decreased by $1.5 million. That's due to ARPA. And license and permits increased 121,000. The next slide is the detail for taxes for general fund. And I have property, sales tax, B&O, utility tax, and other miscellaneous taxes in there. If you look at the largest is sales tax for our city. The next largest is property taxes, but B&O and utility taxes come in at a healthy amount. For 23, we projected 3.4 million for property taxes, sales tax, 6 million. We projected B&O tax at 3.1 million and utility taxes at 3,200,000. The next slide is license and permits. In this area, if you look at the bottom line for permits, in 18, 19, and 20, we were in the high 200s, low 300s. In 2023 or 2022 through the end of October, we are at 552,000, significantly higher. We did not budget that high for 23 because it was an unusual year, and so we went back down to the prior year of 21's total, hopeful that we will stay up there, but not expecting to be where we're at right now, to be conservative. Of course, it wouldn't make any of us unhappy if we stayed at that level, but I don't want to over budget and under promise. The next slide is grants, transfers, and shared revenue, and that one shows 22 and 21, the large blue line, which is the federal grant for ARPA, and our current actual for 22 is again ARPA. So that goes away, as you see on the graph, in 2023. The next slide is for the expenditures for general fund. So general governmental increased 1,837,000, and that was due to our transfers out. 800,000 going to the public buildings fund, 231,250 to artillery, whatever, that for the city match on a couple projects. 161 transfer to parks, and then 262,900 increase in the transfer to streets due to increased cost in those funds. The next graph is one that is broken out by the different departments in general fund for expending. And the largest is police. The next largest is, well, actually, general government is the largest. The next one is police, and the next one is fire. I then have another graph or another chart. This one is sorted by type. So this breaks out all of the expenses for general fund by the different types. The indirect cost reduction that goes out to the other funds, salaries and fringe, professional services, all of those are listed here. But on the next slide, I go through the salary and fringe, and I break that out by department. And you can see that the largest outflow is police, the next largest outflow is fire for payroll and salaries and fringe. I did another graph on that because, you know, you can't have too many graphs. And this one has a breakdown of from 2020 to 23, each one of the different departments and their increases. And their legend gives the colors for each year. The final part of general fund that I want to go into that we really haven't discussed fully, or I haven't discussed fully since I've been here, is the transfers out of general fund. So general fund supports a significant amount of other funds in these cities. General fund money supports the library, parks, streets, arterial streets, abatement, animal control, parking enforcement, the museum, public buildings, fire pension, and police pension. And 23 is highlighted in that odd color there. And it went up $1,377,000 from 22, mainly due to the money we are transferring over to the public buildings fund for the police and fire building repairs. The next graph shows a history of transfers over for each one of these funds from 2020 through 23. The final section I introduced, and you can look more at the backup and detail for that in the detailed budget report, first reading, and also the one that's by type. But if you go to the next page, I tried to summarize all of the different utilities, their total revenue all together and their expenditures all together, so that you can see how much we have going on in these utilities. And I think, yep, that's my last slide. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, so the final thing I just want to add is if you have any further questions, Council President Cashman had a really good idea. If anyone has questions, please send them to me. I'm going to create a question and answer sheet for any questions that come in, and I will send it out to all of council, department heads, so that everyone can benefit from the answers. And then maybe by me answering those questions, some of the questions that others haven't asked, it might answer those questions for them, so that you get what you need. And that's it. No questions.
Good report.
Thanks, Director Sol. I love all the charts and graphs. Additional updates from department heads tonight.
I had submitted my report earlier to you, or to last week, and I wondered if any of you had questions regarding anything that I had submitted. Happy to answer those. All right, thank you.
Director Farr coming up.
Yeah, I just have a couple things real quick. I wanted to announce that the city is accepting letters of interest to serve on the Board of Museum and History. You can send those letters to our city administrator, Ruth Clemens. We have, let's see, there are 4 positions that are available to serve on the board for a term of 2023 to 2024. And there are 2 positions of the 4 that are for 2023 to 2025. So if you could send those letters of interest to Mayor Shave, care of R. Clemens at aberdeenwa.gov by November 22nd. And then I did want to mention, in the Parks Fund 102 budget, it showed that we were going to have an increase in our transfer. And I know that Director Stoll has talked about finding things that need to be tweaked and things that need to be corrected. There is included on the expense side of that budget, $175,000 for the Stewart's Park Trail. But on the revenue side, it did not include the grant request that I'm putting in, so it makes it look like there's an additional increase. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Does that show the jumping from 800,000 to 1,250,000?
That was part of the list, yes, that would be included with the list that she provided that included the 800,000, yes.
Any additional updates from department heads? Saving yours for later. All right, Mayor Shave, what updates do you have tonight?
Well, I'll just be real brief. We've been busy with union contracts and budget workshops, and as you can see on the agenda tonight is the firefighters contract, which I'm extremely pleased that we're at this point already with that. So it's worked out real well with our negotiating team. We're well into APAU, which is part of the police department. We're into APOG, which is the police officers and the staff. And we are, the what? ASME, that's what I was trying to say. And we're started with the ASME union now. So we're moving right along. Things are going good so far. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor Shave. And we'll move on to the last item for Committee of the Whole, which is non-standing committee reports. So if any council members have any updates on committees they serve on behalf of the city, now is your opportunity to share those. Maybe that's fine. Councilperson Ellis.
I attended a Chehalis River flood workshop, and it gave out some really good information. We have a number of king tides coming our way, and the public can go to their website, ChehalisRiverFlood.com, and check out the flood warning information that's available on that page. It's a good resource.
Thank you. Seeing no further updates, I will adjourn the Committee of the Whole and hand things over to the mayor.
Thank you. This is Mayor Shave. It's Wednesday, November 9th, 2022 at 8:05 p.m. and I call the Aberdeen City Council meeting to order. First item is roll call. Deputy City Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Ellis.
Here.
Rancy.
Here.
Gaken.
Here.
Catchman.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Bertini.
Here.
Ross. Shaw.
Here.
Sedor.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Shay.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Shave, I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Ross tonight.
I second it.
Motion is made and seconded to excuse Councilmember Ross. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. She did notify us, stated that she would. Next item on the agenda is flag salute. Where's my flag salute?
She's out in the hallway.
Charge her phone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Shave, I move we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second?
Motion was made and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any additions or deletions? Seeing none? We'll move on to public comments on agenda items. If anybody wants to speak on an item that's on the agenda, 3 minutes. Could you begin by giving us your name and if what ward, if you know?
131, Sonia Putman. I just wanted to make a few comments regarding the possibility of a homeless shelter being put back downtown again. I am a member of Harbor County Chapel. The last homeless shelter was above my church. It was the longest period of months since I've been there for 15 years that I have ever experienced. I think that you guys really need to concentrate on protecting the people that are paying that 88% of the taxes that are paying for all of the things we all enjoy in Aberdeen, and not concentrating so much on the people that aren't contributing. I talk to those people, I take care of those people, I give them clothes, and I'm telling you, the majority of them were given options, and they said, no, we don't wanna pay rent, we have habits. And I used to be a drug addict. I did not wake up and say, well, okay, I think I'm gonna be a drug addict. But I did say, pass me that pipe, I'm having a great time. I've been clean 20 years now. I didn't get clean because somebody dangled me over a 6-foot grave and held me there with free money and free this and free that. And said, here, we love you, we're helping you. I got clean because I had to get away, I had to get free. But that only came because I made choices to get clean and free. Everybody makes choices. Everybody suffers consequences. The choices you make determine those consequences. We are living in a society that no longer understands the meaning of consequence. And as a result, we have a whole bunch of people out there that are wrecked, completely wrecked. They have no hope. They don't even know that they could have hope. And I just think that as a community that has responsibilities to people that are less fortunate, we should consider how they got that way and how we can actually make it better, rather than, having homeless shelters that don't cater to the people that are actually paying the taxes, paying the high cost of frontage properties so they could have businesses that are successful. And I'm telling you, I talked to all the people that are around my church and asked them, so what do you guys think about a homeless shelter being back down here? None of them thought it was a great idea. One new business, Rancho Alegra, paid $7,000 because somebody took their copper pipe out of the brand new installation that they had for a freezer. They're a new business, they're a great business. But they had to suffer the consequence of people that don't have consequences. And the police, I am not a fan of defunding anyone. I love my police force, but I want to be protected by my police force. So that's all I have to say. I love you guys. I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate what you do. So thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you.
Steve Haywood, Ward 4, where you want to put that homeless shelter, the cold weather shelter. I really hope you guys do not put it there. As you're coming up from First Street to Second Street on Broadway, it's that hillside. People cross the street right there from the orthodontist behind cars. You can't see them until you're right on them. And you go a little further past Second Street, there's the church and then the medical offices, and then you have the driving school. People park along there. People are jaywalking all the time. You really have to watch it and slow down. I followed all kinds of vehicles going up to the 4th Ward, going 40 miles an hour up Broadway. I just feel that is a very dangerous place to be putting a cold weather shelter. And especially when the driving school moved from down here to get away from it, and now you wanna put it right on their doorstep again. I think that's silly. And another point, the vendor that got the bid has sued the city how many times? And the city paid them. They didn't go to court, they settled out of court, which is really silly. Why would you give somebody that sued the city the opportunity to sue the city again? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on agenda items?
Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Orr, and I'm Downtown History Board. So I made this big long list of stuff I wanted to talk about, but I'm sure everybody gets this about the homeless or the warming shelter. And I'm not going to read it because I might read it in public, really. So, but I just want to say, putting the homeless shelter, I guess now it's going to be a couple blocks from the downtown, even though we were told there wasn't going to be a warming shelter in the downtown again. A couple blocks away is still pretty much downtown to me. That's one thing. I just want you to keep your promise and not have a warming shelter anywhere downtown or near the downtown. Number one. We lost huge amounts of money by having the warming shelter. There was 1 month during the warming shelter with the private Aberdeen Art Center where we only made about $275 the whole month with a $1,600 electric bill because we were inundated with crime to us and to our dog and to our building and to our plants and our community. I mean, every hour of every day, we can't let the same thing happen to an area just up the hill that's loaded with churches and schools and kids, a driving school. There's just a lot of stuff up there where you're bringing a lot of people up there who have criminal records. Maybe some have sexual assault or violence in there. I just can't see moving them up into, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a warming shelter, but maybe the mission could change their mission and not require people to listen to prayer and stuff as part of giving them assistance. And then I think more of the homeless would use that 100 beds or whatever is over there instead of it being, 80% empty through the winter. So anyway, I love you guys, I do with all you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, I'm Ann Tara, Ward 4. And, well, I'd just like to reiterate what Sonia said too about the homeless shelter. And I thought that the mayor did ask for it to be put in another town, which I know it's gonna be a big problem for them too. But gosh, we gotta start looking at why we're still getting these people and why they keep expanding. We gotta fix this problem. And I don't see why the city shouldn't even consider suing legislators that are bringing these people to us, because it is putting a burden on us. And after looking at that budget, you have an investment to protect here, because people are gonna move and properties are gonna devalue if we're having more crime. I mean, it's all over the internet about the crime in Aberdeen. It's embarrassing that people think they can't even come here, that it's unsafe. And so, I mean, the city needs to protect what they're receiving their revenues on the housing, and we deserve to be protected by the police. So I know these people need help, and that's another problem with the state of Washington too, why they don't have enough mental health for these people. So it's a vicious cycle, and we can't keep feeding it, and especially with these grants where they're allowing this to go on. It's a whole big plan. And you can see that, like Sonia had a great quote last year where she said that if, what did she say? If drugs and addiction is an illness, why do you keep feeding it? Especially giving needles. and supplying drugs for these people. That is just creating more of a problem. We don't want more of this. So please just, we don't deserve to have more problems like we did last year, and the businesses can't survive. And another thing, why should businesses even pay their taxes when they're not protected and they don't have a safe environment and they can't get the business because of what the city is doing to them? So businesses should be on alert that why should you pay your taxes when you're being treated and allowing these people to just overrun a safe society. So please think and consider other ways, other places. We need mental health. We need to think about suing the legislature that are putting these type of problems on us that we're footing the bill for. So it's a method of destroying our town. And I hope we all have, good plans for this town. So please put them in a good place that doesn't harm our people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Hodgkin. I'm from Ward 4. I've spent the last month, because we're on the front lines. We were on the front lines when they moved the camp off the river, and right across the street from our school. We were right by the library. And it looks like, we're positioned to be on the front line again if they choose to put the cold weather shelter in the Methodist Church, which shares a parking lot with us at the driving school. I'm really grateful for my granddaughters for coming tonight and their friend, because this is an example of the people that would be, at our driving school in the dark. And I've spent the last month speaking to various people. I spent 2 hours speaking with Craig from CAP. I spent time speaking with Debbie Ross, and Stan came over to my house for 2 hours and spent time talking to me. And I'm grateful for all the hard work and the efforts that everyone is making, and for the hours. I don't come to council every time. It's a slog, you guys, and I really appreciate you sitting here and listening to all the financial stuff and everything that you do. But I just want to share with you, when I was in college, I had the privilege of taking a class from Stephen Covey, and a lot of you know who he is. He wrote 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And 2 things that I remember from that, I don't remember a ton from college, but 2 things I remember are, he says you gotta seek for a win-win, and you have to begin with the end in mind. And if you begin with the end in mind, you would never put a shelter that has had the kind of problems that our cold weather shelter has had next to a driving school and a block. I can see McDermott Elementary from my parking lot, and I can see the high school in St. Mary's from my parking lot. It's just not a good location, and everything is about location. I spent 2 hours talking to Craig, and I said, I totally agree the need. There's a huge need, but location is so important. So strive for a win-win. Please strive for a win-win. Every time we do this, it was not a win for Doug. It was not a win for Pastor Sean. It was a cold weather shelter that was kind of misused by a lot of the people that were staying there. Not all of them, but some of them really mistreated the people that had businesses there and had a church there. I found out just yesterday, I spent an hour speaking with Tanika from the More Right group. I found out that the shelter the year previous to the one next to Pastor Sean and Doug, that someone who worked there was asking for sexual favors in lieu of entrance to the camp. That's horrible. I don't think that happens at the Mission. I don't think anything like that has ever happened at the Mission. I also found out from her that someone at the camp is committing rapes at Knife Point. I don't want that by my school and by my children and by mothers who wait in their car for their kids to finish their drives and their classes. We can't keep doing this to Aberdeen. We have to seek for a win-win. We have to seek for a solution that works for everyone. including those who are struggling, even if they don't want help. You know, there has to be a win-win solution. Please do not be the person who chooses the problem over the innocent. You know, I've attended every meeting that I could attend. I was at a meeting where one of the commissioners who said we're gonna be sued if we don't go through with this, putting this count by my school, but also said, don't put it in Cosmopolis when Pete suggested Cosmopolis, because she lives there. And she
That's
said,
time, Debbie.
Cosmopolis is too small. You know, she doesn't want it there. You know, and another person on the council chose to put it by my school still, but when events happen close to where she lives, she puts cones in front of her house so people can't park there. You know, you've got to think of the businesses and the churches and everyone that's gonna be affected by this. And seek
Time's
a
up,
win-win
Deb.
solution. And I leave that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is tough.
So I'm Terry Hodgkin, Ward 4. I can't really add anything of practical substance to what's already been said on the issue of the cold weather shelter, because there has been exponentially more in history regarding the cold weather shelter that's been presented here to justify not offering a cold weather shelter for either a very long time or until the expectations on the part of the people who are utilizing the cold weather shelter are defined and enforced. That has to be the bottom line. In the big picture is the same for every one of us individually here and collectively, and that is that we all have to conform to and comply with a minimum standard of personal responsibility. And the only person in the world anybody has ever not expected that of is a 2-year-old. When you have a 2-year-old in your home, that's the beginning of the transition to the personal responsibility that is the only thing that sustains any human being through the course of life from the age of 2 until death at a ripe old age. So personal responsibility has to factor into this issue more than anything, in addition to everything else that has been said in the last many minutes by multiple people who have experienced the consequences of this cold weather shelter debacle that has been in play for multiple years, the source of which is we are now in our 3rd decade here in Aberdeen of dealing with this homeless issue. 30 years, and we've never made progress with it. There are people who are more intelligent than I, and our presence here, and as resources available from multiple sources, who can resolve this issue. But these hard choices have to be made, and personal accountability has to be priority number 1, every moment of every day, of every year, throughout everyone's life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
for the record, we received one comment via mail. It was anonymous. It is regarding RCW 35A.33.055 budget message preliminary hearings. It will be scanned into the record with the minutes.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the Finance Committee. Committee Chair report from Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee had a really good meeting this evening. Staff has done an incredible amount of work preparing this proposed 2023 budget. And we have a lot of paperwork to go through. There's a number of steps. It's really important that all of us send our questions to Patricia so that she can answer them. And And I also want to invite the public to be involved in this process and ask questions of your council representatives so that you know what we're doing and we know that we're following your priorities as well. So tonight we have one report and 3 ordinances in their first reading. But we'll start with the approval of expenditures, and I move we approve the expenditures as stated.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to approve the payroll and expenditures. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Ellis?
And the numbers are.
Yep. The motion to approve accounts payable in the total amount of $1,330,707.02. Payroll in the total amount of $844,031.11. Check numbers 25639 through 25643, 79403 through 79570, and wires 1410, 1413 through 1419. Ellis?
Yes.
Francie?
Yes.
Gaken?
Yes.
Catchman?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Mackey?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Fairchieni?
Yes.
Shaw?
Yes.
Sedor?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion approved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to report from Finance and the Community Development Director, recommending that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the contract for services with Makers Architecture and Urban Design for the update to the 1999 zoning code and appoint an ad hoc committee made up of 4 City Council members that would help guide the Planning Commission and staff through the process. I move we adopt this report.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Last year, we revised the city's comprehensive plan, and now our zoning code from 1999 needs to be updated so that it's in compliance both with the comprehensive plan and with changes in state law.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Then we have the first reading of bill number 22-12, an ordinance adopting the 2023 annual budget for the city of Aberdeen. I move we approve this reading.
I second it.
Adopt this reading.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to approve the first reading of the 23 budget. Any discussion? Under discussion.
I just wanted to state how appreciative I've been of Patricia Soul and Ruth Clemens and others, including Liz, who have helped. I've had a lot of questions about looking over the city budget. My first time digging into a document like this, of this complexity and type, even though I have a lot of experience looking at financial statements and budgets. This is a different animal. And I appreciated all of the input. I now have more questions, but I'm sure I'll get the answers I'm eventually looking for. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Catchman.
There is a council meeting that is on November 30th, which we plan not to cancel because there's an item that is time specific that needs to be held that day. So I anticipate there to be a light agenda with my conversations with city personnel. So my thought for that would be to use it as almost a workshop for council to be able to ask any questions that they have of city staff, and hopefully staff can be on hand to answer any questions at that time for anything that's more in-depth than just a quick phone call or email.
Okay.
Is there a timeline for the ad hoc committee? Do we need that tonight? Or is
Well,
it something
I was gonna ask that. Do we want to vote on a ad hoc committee right away tonight? So,
We jumped back to the previous item now.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted, sorry. I want-
Well, I was gonna wait until council comments. Okay,
We'll start again there.
okay, where are we at here?
First reading.
Is there any other discussion on the first reading? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Very good. Then we have the first reading of bill number 22-13, an ordinance for the levy in 2022 upon all taxable property within the city of Aberdeen for 2023 for all municipal purposes authorized by law and fixing the amount thereof pursuant to RCW 84.55.12. I move we adopt this.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this first reading of all taxable levies. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This allows the city to receive an additional 1% as provided by law, which is really important, given the pace of inflation, that this will help us keep pace with inflation and costs.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then our last item is the first reading of bill number 22-14, an ordinance adopting a supplemental budget to change the 2022 appropriations and expenditures as specified. I move we adopt this first reading.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt the first reading of this bill. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So again, to just reiterate that this supplemental budget helps us close out 2022 and involves the transfer of $2.3 million of the insurance proceeds to pay for items, some of which include Morrison Park, library maintenance, and an abatement overage from 2022.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that is all from finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Public Works, Committee Chair Report from Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Works has two reports on the agenda tonight, but I'll share a couple of things that we talked about in our meeting yesterday. The Fry Creek project is coming along and the bypass starts. They'll be bypassing Fry Creek, but one of the things we asked about was whether the bypass has the capacity to handle the flow of the creek, and they assured us that it does. So it's that'll be in place. They had a kickoff meeting for the North Shore levee this week, and so we'll start seeing surveyors out in the near future, and some geotech boring will be taking place. The cover replacement on Fairview Reservoir number 2 is in place, and staff is still in shock that the North Aberdeen Bridge is fully funded at $23 million, but we're not going to turn the money down, and we're going to get it done. So there you go. So under reports and communications, we have a report from Public Works and the Public Works Director recommending that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 5 to task order number 4 with HDR Engineering Incorporated for construction management and inspection services for the Fry Creek Pump Station project. I move we adopt this report.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We have a report from Public Works and the Public Works Director recommending that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign Amendment Number 1 to loan number DWL 26631, funding the Fairview Reservoir Covers and Liners Project. I move we adopt this report.
Seconded.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all from Public Works.
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw. Public Safety Committee Chair Ross is absent tonight, who's given.
I am.
Okay. Council Member Mackey.
Yes. My name is John Mackey, council member. We have the Aberdeen Police Department here with Dale Green, and we have the Fire Department with Dave Golding. And starting off with the Police Department, for personnel, we are still working on the background for one entry-level police officer and one police services officer for corrections. New written tests in the next 2 weeks for each batch of applicants. Still have 3 police officer vacancies and soon to be 2 PSOs as one goes to the police academy next week. 2, activity report for the past 30 days for the APD is 2,584 calls, tracking 8.8% above last year. 6 successful candidates passed the Sergeant's Assessment Center last week and move on to the Chief's interviews in the coming weeks. Aberdeen VIPs contributed 224 hours during October, valued at $15 per hour. This is a contribution of $3,360 for the service to the Aberdeen for October. So far in 2022, VIP personnel have contributed 1,652.5 hours of service to the city of Aberdeen. The value of $24,787.50, averaging $2,478.75 a month. Currently, there are 13 VIP people. They have taken possession of the retired Seattle satellite transmission truck from Q13, and we will be putting on decals inside and utilizing its mobile command post. It will be operational very soon. I saw that on Channel 13 the other morning when that happened. The department has been awarded $35,000 grant from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs for officers' wellness. The funds are allocated or allotted from the legislature and dedicated to improving the wellness of our police officers and those who support them. That is all I have from the Aberdeen Police Department. And then we have the Fire Department with Chief Dave Golding. Also, neither one of these have any agenda items. Call statistics for October 2022. Utah Department received 480 calls for service in the month of October. And year-to-date, that's 480 runs. Year-to-date, that's 5,095 calls. Cosmopolis Fire Department call statistics are September 15 EMS, 1 fire, 16 total, 204 for the year. Fire Service Specialist Report, October 22, 15 public service announcements, 15 public service assistants for referrals. The Fire Extinguisher Training, September 19th and 20th. There were 2 classes of fire extinguisher training done at the Port of Grace Harbor. 29 employees received the training. This training is key to ensure the safe work environment from the employees of the port. Public education, October was Fire Prevention Month. This year we attended the elementary schools in Aberdeen. Roughly 850 from kindergarten to 3rd grade took part in fire prevention. This year, the Aberdeen firefighters visited Harbor City Church for fire prevention. This is the first year the Aberdeen Fire has gone to the church for fire prevention. The purpose of going to Harbor City Church was to provide a fire safety education to homeschooled students. Many of these students had not received the fire prevention classes until this year. Thanks to the partnership with Dave Steinman, State Farm's office, and Domino's, we are able to provide many of the students with fire safety kits to take home. Partnership with Domino's. Aberdeen Fire Department partnered with Domino's this year. The goal of the partnership was to ensure people had working smoke alarms in their homes. Aberdeen Fire Department, Aberdeen Fire with Domino's employees delivered pizzas. When we would show up at the home, safety inspection was done. If the home had working smoke alarms, they were given a free pizza. If no smoke alarms were presented, the AFD fire department would install working up-to-date smoke alarms, and all customers were surprised by the visit and were happy to allow us to their homes to do a check. All the homes visited had working smoke alarms and were excited about the interaction. Washington State LNI Fire Program. The Aberdeen City Department will be participating in the Washington State LNI Fire Program. This program evaluates the effectiveness of established safety programs and looks for ways to improve firefighter safety and reduce injuries. Participation in this program results in a 10% discount on worker compensation rates and access to safety. And that is all I have tonight.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to special agenda items.
All right, we have a fair amount of special agenda items. So I'll start off with some items from Personnel Committee, and Personnel Committee did meet this Monday, the 7th, and one item that's not on here, but I believe is slated for the 22nd is for council to consider the mayor's promotion of interim Fire Chief Dave Golding's promotion to Fire Chief. So if anyone doesn't see that on the agenda tonight, it's coming up on the 22nd. So moving on to the first item here tonight is the report from personnel recommending that the city council adopt the resolution to execute the 2023-2025 collective bargaining agreement with the IAFF Local 315. I move that we accept this report.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept this report. Any discussion? Other than yay? Seeing none?
Point of clarification. So does this mean that if we approve this, we're accepting their recommendation, but then we have to vote to actually execute it and accept it, or?
Yes, that'll be done in the resolution.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 2 is a report from personnel recommending that the city council approve the request to promote and increase the pay for John Chum effective November 1st, 2022. I move that we accept this report.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept this report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And item number 3 is a report from personnel recommending that the city council adopt the recommendation of the advancement in the paid leave schedule and longevity pay premium for 18 years and 4 months of service for firefighter paramedic Chris Raffleson effective October 3rd, 2022. I move we accept this report.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept this report. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And report number 4, hopefully I'm not stealing the thunder of the chairperson for the Homeless Housing Committee. Okay, you want me to present it? Okay, is a report from the Homeless Housing Committee recommending that the city council vote against having a cold weather shelter in Aberdeen and ask that the county look to other communities in Grace Harbor to host this for the 2022-2023 year. I move that we accept this report.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Is there any discussion? Under discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I know how hard it has been for Aberdeen, having a homeless presence in our community. I know it's been hard for neighbors, for business owners, and that a number of shelters have been run without proper oversight. But just because there have been failures doesn't mean that we shouldn't hold the county accountable and ask for a properly run shelter that serves the most needy of people here in Aberdeen. My concern is that we turn down this county-funded shelter, and then we have nothing for the people who are not causing crime, not doing crime. They're on a wait list for housing, but it hasn't come yet. And the weather is getting colder, and there is no place for them to go. And even at best, we can't serve all of the homeless people who are here. But by doing nothing, we offer, we're turning down money, and we're not doing anything proactive that helps the situation improve for anyone. So I would rather the city have some very stringent requirements of the county. Maybe a shelter is not put at the location on Broadway, but to work with them to find another location where the most vulnerable of homeless people have somewhere to go when it's really cold.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I would like to speak. There are several places for people to go for warming shelters. We do have the Mission. There are rules, and there are rules for a reason. That's why they don't have the same chaos that we had at our last shelter and the shelter before, because there are rules. And unfortunately, when you're homeless and you need a place to stay warm, you might have to obey someone's rules. What we've learned over the last 3 years is that these rules are not being followed at these warming shelters. They've nearly destroyed our community. My own mother will not go downtown. She's scared to death. And when the shelter was down there, it was even worse. I was scared to go downtown. I still struggle because they travel down to my house. I have to clean up needles in my yard. I have to clean up their garbage after an evening of, trying to prowl my cars. We do have videos now. But they do have places to go. I do think a warming shelter would be nice, but not in Aberdeen. We've hosted it for years, and Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I read the applicant's letter and their application, and the rules were the same as the shelter from last year. Maybe a little bit tweaked, and they don't have the ability to manage it. They are not qualified to manage something like that in Aberdeen. There are places in Ocean Shores, there's places in Elma, there's places in Hopeland, there's places in Montesano. They have the Lions Club in Causey that they could rent. Why wouldn't that be a good warming shelter? Why does it have to be Aberdeen? If they're going to experiment again, I'd rather not do it at the expense of the greater community here. And I think if we ask Police Chief Green, how would it impact the city if we don't have a warming shelter? Was the warming shelter beneficial to our community last year?
Well, the challenge for us, for law enforcement, is we don't have a shelter, then that makes it status quo for, as far as enforcing the camping ordinances, sit line ordinance and things like that. The shelter last shore was located, tripled our call load in that area, so it was absolutely a very busy spot for us.
Thank you. And then Fire Chief Holding. How did the shelter affect the fire department and paramedics?
Right, so I can say that at the shelter this last year, we did have, I counted 34 calls just in the shelter in the time that it was open. So now I honestly cannot quantify if those calls would have happened elsewhere or not, but that was the number we had. So.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyway, I think that's about.
Councilmember Catchman.
For anyone that read the report, I was not in favor at the committee meeting of having the location on Broadway, but I was very torn about having the location in Aberdeen. And my famous words for this tonight, and I've said it in the past, is it's not a no, it's a not yet for me. I think that there needs to be some additional work that's completed on the oversight plan, put some assurances in place for our citizens and businesses before Aberdeen plays a host to this again. I believe the mayor has provided a suitable location in the past within Aberdeen, which is a location that is away from the overwhelming majority of our residents and businesses, which is over in Junction City at the Juvenile Detention Center. So I think that would possibly be the only location in Aberdeen that's suitable at this time that I'm aware of. And I am still awaiting a response from the county on if they're going to continue to provide shelter options outside Aberdeen if this report comes through. So I did want to share that I had sent that out to Commissioner Pine and just haven't received a response yet.
Okay, thank you. Hands go up. Councilmember Morrison.
I'll be very brief. I just want to read a letter that I received today from Nancy Babcock, and she attends Harbor Calvary Chapel, which was right in the same building as last year's shelter. And she wanted me to convey this to the mayor and the council. She says, to Mayor Shave and City Council, I am not able to attend tonight's meeting, so I'm sending this letter to be read on my behalf. I understand there will be a vote on the homeless cold shelter tonight. I can understand you are all in a very tough spot. On the one hand, we have all compassion for people living outside in the winter and hate to think of them suffering in the cold weather. On the other hand, they mostly are not good neighbors. They alienate themselves from anyone they camp near. If they could behave themselves, not pose a safety hazard, and keep their camping area clean, this would be a very different situation. Surely memory has not dimmed from just last winter when their cold shelter was in downtown Aberdeen. It was a horrible experience for any business and residents in the general area of this K Street cold shelter, and especially for Harbor Calvary Church. I believe a review of the letters, testimony, reports, and council minutes will show the facts of the negative impact of having the cold shelter in that area. I understand other locations in downtown Aberdeen are being considered. What are you thinking? Is there any evidence the same nightmare would not be repeated this winter, just in a different neighborhood? The facts are, they camp on the sidewalks, making it impossible for anyone else to use them. Excrement is left in the doorways and on sidewalks daily. Church members had to pick up almost a dumpster load of trash every day. 3 attempts on a man's life, and a woman was assaulted in the doorway. Drugs were being used in the open, making it very difficult for recovering addicts in the church, and not an environment law-abiding people choose to be in or bring their children to. Sexual acts are in the open, right by church windows, broken windows in the church, and the cold shelter door had to be replaced twice. People were afraid to come to church or to bring their children there. If the council members in favor of another shelter in Aberdeen feel they are being compassionate, good guys for the homeless people, please consider the serious impact on the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens and business owners. Who is standing up for them? Who is ensuring the safety of the people who live and attempt to do business in that environment? Who is reimbursing homes and businesses for vandalism, damages, and theft? Who's going to clean up the excrement, the needles, and the trash the homeless people leave? Who is going to keep children safe who need to walk to and from school in the area being considered? Who will protect more businesses from having to close and move out of the area? Who will make Aberdeen a clean and safe city for new businesses to consider moving here? Please make the best decision for all of Aberdeen, especially the majority who are law-abiding citizens. Thank you, Nancy Babcock, Central Park.
Councilmember Taylor.
So when we're presented with a policy or an idea, we need to ask solid questions. First, at what cost? Financial harm, manpower, cleanup, danger. All those things are presented when we've had the shelter before. Number two, what hard data do you have that it will be successful? We know that last year's shelter was damaging to the community as a whole, and the applicants were not qualified here this year to run the facility. Number three, will it make it better for a handful of people at the expense of the community as a whole? That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ellis.
I wanted to make a motion to amend the report to clarify that this is saying that city council is voting against a county-funded cold weather shelter. I think it's important to make that distinction, county-funded, because that's what's come to our attention. And there is the possibility that a church could host a shelter on their own, on church property, as protected by state law. So my motion is, this would read, report from the Homeless Housing Committee recommending that the city council vote against having a county-funded cold weather shelter in Aberdeen, and ask that the county look to other communities in Grays Harbor to host this for the 2022-2023 year. Do I have a second?
I'll second that only because I want to have some discussion.
Motion was made and seconded to amend the report. Any discussion? Under discussion?
Thank you. So a few questions. So I know that the county has sent a letter to the city asking if the city would consider other locations. Is the city basically taking the position that regardless of whether it's county funded or otherwise, we're not interested in having a cold weather shelter in Aberdeen this season?
Yes.
Did you want to answer?
Yeah, what we would be saying in our response to the county that would be drafted, whatever the vote comes out to, if it comes out that we don't want to host it or we don't prefer to host it, that our position is that we do not want it in Aberdeen. That's the way that we would have to word it, because as Councilmember Ellis said, churches are allowed by state law, by an RCW, to host cold weather shelters. But this one is where we're asking a county to be a good neighbor and a good partner, and to not select Aberdeen as the site and to not approve the application submitted to them.
And if the city council votes that we don't want a cold weather shelter, is that basically a legal precedent that says they cannot come in and do it anyway?
Nope, that we are saying our preference is that. And
It's
I
just
had
a
spoken-
preference.
It's at that we do not, and we're asking the county to be good partners. that
But
way,
if they
so-
want to do it anyway, can they come into our community and do it anyway?
Yes, they can.
Under county auspices?
Under county, and that would be all of this is a county-funded program. This is all county-funded. Like I said, churches can operate cold weather shelters.
Thank you.
Everyone here seen the letter that was taken to the county. And their question was, did the council ratify this letter? And I said that the impression from the council follows what this letter says. And they wanted to see a direct, positive ratification of what that letter said. And so that's what this report does. Councilmember Shaw.
So I'm not in favor of the amendment because I'm not opposed to a properly operated cold weather shelter. And I think the proposals that are currently on the table are unacceptable. And what happened last year is unacceptable, but I don't think we should give up. There are the bad actors that take advantage. I think we absolutely should have the backbone to deal with them and control them and manage them, because to not do that is gonna hurt the invisible homeless who really need something in the cold. So I won't be supporting the amendment because I'm in favor of continuing to try and find something that will work for our community.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I do want to say that we have that vouchers for motels. So there are other ways for them to get warm, besides just the mission and the women's shelter and some of the churches, but they do have motel vouchers, so they don't have to freeze, they don't have to be cold.
Okay.
My question is, with Junction City not having any representation, is it part of Aberdeen or is it part of?
It's in the Aberdeen city limits, it's county property.
So if we got it officiated there, would that be going against our recommendation? Since it's, that if we're saying we would approve for it there, but then we're recommending that it's not anywhere in city limits.
At this point, that's off the table. We have researched everywhere in Aberdeen to try to find a safe place where it's safe for the greater community and the handful of people that need a warming shelter. We couldn't find one in Aberdeen. We couldn't find a safe building. It has to be up to code as well.
And then what's the impasse with Junction City? There's still juvenile inmates housed there?
There is.
How could we resolve that? Where could we?
Well, that's a whole nother subject that's actually being looked into.
Good, because I think the more we discuss that, the faster we can figure out how and if this can be the place it goes. Because the more and more I think about it, it seems like a great place where it has showers, kitchen, laundry, indoor, outdoor facilities. We could easily access it with public transportation by adding this as a simple extension to the wave route that already runs to Walmart. Several ways that could be made a great spot if we can get it rolling.
Right. Okay, Councilmember Katzman.
I'm going to vote against this amendment because this is an agenda item, and the report clearly states that it's related to the Grays Harbor County's recent request for proposals. And that's what we're voting on, is the report, not the agenda item that's written about the report.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The amendment fails. So there was a motion and a second to adopt the report. Is there any further discussion on that? Councilmember Shaw?
Yes, thank you. I think every single member of this council, I think we're unanimous in how upset we were last year with the way the cold weather shelter was operated. It was not done very well, but I also agree with the people who spoke in the audience that they shouldn't have to be afraid of anything that is government operated. But I also agree with the comments that recognize there is a need. And I just worry that we're unfortunately measuring our response based on last year's abysmal operation. And it's been mentioned, and I agree, that the Union Gospel Mission has been demonstrating for years that a properly operated shelter can be a non-threatening non-event. But unfortunately, they are not able to serve some of the people that a cold weather shelter is going to serve if it's properly managed. So I think we should be ensuring that a cold weather shelter is properly operated, not eliminated in Aberdeen. And I have struggled these past couple of years with the callousness of our fellow cities that are happy to let Aberdeen own the homeless issue, and that we've not owned it as a county. They're just happy to let it be Aberdeen's problem. I struggle with that, but I'm struggling even more with this proposal. It's my belief that we have a lot of poverty, not just in Aberdeen, but in the county, and that our goal should be a cold weather shelter in every community on Grays Harbor. And to not have one in Aberdeen is going to be, I wrote down here travesty, but I know that sounds a little hyperbolic, but I just think it would be incredibly sad and an incredibly poor public policy for this council to not keep exploring this issue. And so I'll be voting no. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all.
Mayor Shea?
Oh, go ahead.
Just really quick, I want to say on the record that if the oversight plan is expanded and that there are assurances put in place for our citizens and businesses, that I am happy to look at this again as a council or whatever my authority is related to that, but.
Okay. Go ahead.
Last quick comment, answering Councilmember Shaw's concern. I'm not hearing that we're saying we're no longer going to continue to explore the issue and work on the problem. I think we're just right now looking for something alternate for this season.
Councilmember Shaw.
I just don't think that the people we're trying to serve are going, we learned when we closed the tent shelter that they didn't go elsewhere to find shelter, they stayed here. I don't believe that the people who need help are gonna travel for warmth.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, all in favor of the report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Roll call.
Deputy City Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Ellis,
No.
Francie,
No.
Gaken,
Yes.
Catchman,
Unfortunately, yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Pericini,
Yes.
Shaw,
No.
Sedor,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
7-4, Mr. Mayor, motion passes.
Thank you.
And we have a resolution on the agenda. And it's a resolution that's authorizing the mayor and the finance director to execute a labor contract with Aberdeen firefighters, IAFF Local 315 for the years of 2023 to 2025. I move that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve of this resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, the resolution has been approved.
This will be resolution number 22-16.
Thank you.
Finally, we have a proclamation for Small Business Saturday. Is that one yours, Mayor Shea?
Yeah, right here. And I guess I should read the whole thing. I should have brought my glasses. Whereas the government of Aberdeen, Washington celebrates our local small business and contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 62% of the new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector of the United States. And whereas 79% of consumers understand the importance of supporting the small business. On Small Business Saturday, 70% report the day makes them want to encourage others to shop small. Independently owned retailers, and 66% report that that day makes them want to shop small all year long. And whereas 58% of shoppers report they shopped online with small business, and 54% reported they dined in or ordered takeout from small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas Aberdeen, Washington supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore, I, Pete Shave, Mayor of Aberdeen, Washington, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Saturday. And I urge all residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Confirmed this 9th day of November, 2022. Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments.
Mayor Shea, did you want us to
Oh,
vote on that?
vote to support
Do we need to
proclamation.
accept it?
You know, we haven't had a lot of them. Do we need to?
You can, but it's not required.
Go,
Let's
we
vote
will
on
do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll make it unanimous with this whole council. We'll be out there shopping small businesses.
Yes. Do you have your holiday gift buying guide for us for
No,
downtown businesses?
I don't get mine out until December 24th. Would you like to make the
I
motion?
move we accept the proclamation.
I second it.
Thank you. Motion was made and seconded to approve this proclamation. Any discussion? Everyone's going small business shopping, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to public comments. Any public comments?
Steve Haywood, Ward 4. Thank you for those who voted to save downtown Aberdeen. Those who didn't, I don't know what to say. I was downtown shopping at a business, I'm not gonna say the business name, three very nice ladies behind the counter. I was there talking to them. Another lady, young girl shopping. She goes, well, I think I'm gonna go around the corner to another store and see what they have. And the little ladies behind the counter said, "Are you by yourself?" And this was at noon. Good, yes. Boy, I wouldn't walk around those streets during the day or at night in Aberdeen. Just saying. There was a council comment about, well, can the police take care of that problem at the homeless or the cold weather shelter? Sorry, they can't. I witnessed somebody breaking into a building the other day, took pictures of it, video. He had a screwdriver and he was unscrewing the board to get into the building. 3 officers showed up, watched him unscrew another screw. I'm like, what's going on? Why are they doing this? Letting him do this? He walked away. I drove over there, didn't use very good language at all to the officers. I said, so you're letting him walk away? Well, yeah. I said he was breaking in. Well, no, he said that he put money in that crack and it fell behind the board. He was just moving the board. I said, okay, well, next time I get pulled over, I'll think of a good one too. Maybe you'll believe me. No disrespect to the chief, but I think the police need to start arresting these people and letting the prosecutors and the judges take care of them. Just arrest them. This guy, I've seen him a lot of places. I get so upset when all I hear is, sorry, we can't do anything. Sorry, we can't do anything. Well, I think the citizens need to step up and start doing something. You know, first it was a machete the police didn't take away from the guy and he got on the bus with the person he was arguing with. And this happened. He was clearly breaking into that building. Arrest him. Thank you.
Debbie Hodgkin, Ward 4. So for those of you who are disappointed by the events tonight, I just want to encourage you. We've only lived here 10 years. And in the 10 years that we've lived here, we've had 2 homeless women come live with us. And for over a year. So Liz, you know, if you know people who feel the way you feel, you know, gather those people together and have a solution. You know, I think this would be much less of a problem if people were taken in individually and given a refuge from the cold. We've done it, and we loved it. Warm fuzzies, you know, for really reaching out and putting yourself out there to do something to really make a difference and not putting it onto other people, something that you want to see done. You know, I don't want to put this on any other business. My business dealt with it for 3 years. You know, Doug and Pastor Sean dealt with it, you know, last year. Very difficult, very difficult. But individually, huge differences can be made. We've done it, we loved it, and that's my recommendation. For any of you who care for these people to not be in the cold, open your home, open your basement, find a place in your heart.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to city council comments. Any city council comments?
I have a question for Dale. The $35,000 wellness grant, what's that translate to? Like a new gym or foosball tournament tables? Where you guys?
Yeah, it's fitness equipment to replace. Yeah, we have one up in our attic, and so replace all that equipment. So the city doesn't have to pay for it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I need to appoint a zoning code update committee. And I have 4 suggestions of committee members that worked with this product before. So if that's agreeable with everybody, I would appoint Casey, or Councilmember Morrison, excuse me, Councilmember Pericini, Councilmember Taylor, and Councilmember Ellis to the zoning code update committee.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion was made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor, I had a quick comment.
Go ahead.
This is fall and the leaves are starting to come off of trees and, it's really helpful for folks raking up those leaves, not to rake them up into the streets where they're going to contribute to clogged storm drains, but rake them up, turn them into compost, use them as mulch on your flower beds or garden beds. And if you see a plugged up storm drain, go ahead and kind of fun to scoot those leaves out with your feet and up onto higher ground. That will help out a lot.
Fill a pothole with them.
They make great mulch. Okay, anyone else? One last thing, I just want to remind everybody, you already heard, Dave Golding was offered the fire chief's job, and I'm so glad that he gracefully accepted. And so next council meeting, which is what, the 22nd, is when we're gonna officially award that position, but so.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, that's okay.
I
I just wanted to
apologize.
make sure everybody understood next council meeting will
As
make
part
that
of that
official.
process, does he have to jump through like a burning hoop or something?
2 of them.
He already did.
He has to ride a goat blindfolded.
And then on a more serious note, I'd like to go back to the Junction City situation, because I know we kind of got some mixed communications going with that. I mean, Debbie kind of mentioned it's kind of a dead horse
Right now,
right now.
right now.
And what is the timeline we can see? Is there more we can discuss about it?
There might be in the future, sure, but not right now, there's not.
No, like,
The building's not available right now.
isn't there like, what would you call it, a treaty assigned, where like, say you'd be able to house them? Say like maybe Pacific County would take them?
We can't combine it with the youth juveniles that are in there. And so there has to be another solution for that court and the juveniles, which is all being used. Although at a very low level, one of the county judges is in charge of that. And
How many floors of the county do right now? I mean, that's another thing, we can't house juveniles even in the same building, even if they are separated by floors?
it has to be a specific type of building, set up specifically to handle all that. So it's a big deal, as you're probably realizing already. There's a lot to it, and I've been working with Kevin Pine pretty closely on trying to find a way around this and a solution so that we can use that building. It's not gonna happen soon enough to affect our current issue with cold weather shelter. Anything else?
I move we adjourn.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adjourn. If nobody objects, I will adjourn this meeting.
This is the first time I ever did that. I saw the cue there, though, like, we're done.
Yeah.